Welcome to What's for Lunch? Conversations about trends and trade in food and ag, and how it all affects what's on your plate. This podcast brings important information in a unique way. It's unique because it approaches relevant issues from a different angle, and the relevant issues are relevant to food businesses, farmers, and consumers. If you eat, grow food, or sell food, this podcast is for you. I'm Susan Burns, your lunchtime host and on-call business lawyer. Our motto is always interesting, always lively. Today is definitely no exception to that. We're talking to Brady Stewart, founder, owner, and passion director of J. Brady Seasonings in Fort Collins, Colorado. Brady has a long history in the food industry, starting as a food engineer. He loves to cook, he loves to entertain, and that seems only natural since he comes from an extended family of excellent cooks. Brady is self-described as being passionate about food, beverage, and people. I suggest that given his background, he builds community with tasty food. One of the aspects of cooking that Brady particularly enjoys is the creation of flavor profiles. Eventually, Brady decided to start his own business doing something that he loves. And I think the world is a tastier place because of that. We're going to learn more about Brady's love of cooking, his passion for flavor creation, and how this combination resulted in a successful business for Brady. Welcome, Brady.
Came from a family of cooks. This is not a joke. My mother's actual name is Martha Stewart, so it's just kind of yeah. I know. My dad's Jimmy Stewart too. We have all these famous names, I guess. But we've always just enjoyed cooking. I grew up in the Middle America family that we ate dinner at the table every night. Eating out once a week was a special thing, and when we did, it was an adventurous thing. And so we always liked trying new recipes, really honing in on the ones we grew up with, the staples. And I've just always taken a passion to it. It was great being in the kitchen with my mom or my dad, aunts and uncles, my grandparents too. And, I just always enjoyed that, the people aspect of it. I love the science aspect of it. I love the production aspect of it. My grandparents, they actually still own a 1,200-acre cattle ranch in southern Oklahoma. My dad was in ag economics and worked on the production side of it. And then I got into food engineering, which is actually kind of a branch of agricultural engineering. And so it's really in the family, and it's really just been part of everything I've done. Aside from that, I've worked in the food service industry. So I've done everything from bartender, bar back, barista. I've done a little bit of short order cook, and I've gotten to see all that. And it's been great. I've worked for major food companies. My day job, I'm still with one right now. And I have a really strong, if you want to call it interest, I'm a big food nerd when it comes to what we eat, where it comes from, and why it plays such a big role in our lives. And so really the biggest thing for me, where this passion came from as far as starting my business, I've always wanted to start something of my own. I knew it would probably be food and beverage. I just didn't know what at the time. And my wife, one day, this was almost 3 years ago, one day, I'm sitting there blending, the different bulk seasonings so that I always have the bulk stuff in my cabinet at home. And my wife, she just looked at me and she's like, "You're always doing that. Why don't you do that?"
And
there you go. Kind of clicked. I think some people have like an aha moment, whether it's big or small. But I sit there and thought about it. And I said, I am constantly having to go and buy all these different things to match a certain flavor profile that I'm trying to match with whatever dish it is. So many food cuisines around the world, food genres, if you want to call it that, are based around these certain flavor profiles. Mediterranean is heavy on herb and citrus. If you want to look at Mexican and Southwest, heavy on chilies and a lot of your earthy, smoky spices. And something of that clicked with me of, man, I'm already blending these and trying to get these flavors that I can repeat over and over without a whole lot of effort. And that's where it came from.
That's great. So Brady, it sounds like you've done it all in the food service industry. But
yeah.
Oh, good for you. I mean, that gives you a really well-rounded background to pursue a business in the food industry. So you can look at it from a
Right.
lot of different angles, I think. And that's great. But a lot of people are in the food business, but you talk about passion and like happiness and bringing people together. I mean, what's that about? How does that impact your business and your business decisions? Because
Well,
I
part
think
of it,
that brings a different angle to it than, hey, I created
it
this.
really, of course, these are things that I've done in my kitchen. I'm like, man, I've had a great cookout, or these were great meals that I had growing up. How do I repeat that for somebody that I've never met can find that on a shelf and go repeat that in their kitchen? And there's something really special about that to me. And now that I'm expanding, I think there's just a really neat feeling you get when you know that a total stranger is using a product that you've made and getting something out of it. Maybe it's not the Norman Rockwell family around the table dinner scene, but maybe they made some really good pork chops for their family that night, and that was like the highlight of their day after a long day. I don't know. Uh, I just really think there's a neat perspective of, hey, I've helped somebody get something small in that arena, that arena of food and beverage. And so that's what really drives me in that aspect of it.
Uh-huh. That's great. So you make it easier for people to have tasty meals rather than just pork chops and olive oil again.
Yeah,
Right?
exactly. And I know, there's salt and there's pepper and there's all sorts of different blends, but the thing I saw lacking was like a true flavor profile. Like, you know, growing up, everything I tasted grilled where I grew up in North Texas always tasted different than when I'd go somewhere else and somebody grilled something. And I'm like, how do I repeat that? Because
Mm.
I just remember like grilling out for like the Friday Night Lights football game, somebody's making steaks and I'd never tasted a steak like that. How do I replicate that?
Hmm.
Or how do I, my granddad made a lot of Cajun food growing up. Even in New Orleans and all that, I never tasted something quite like his. How do I replicate that without all the sauces and buying all the individual components of it? What can I do to really, I don't want to say dumb it down, but simplify that to where I can get that same taste over and over again.
So all the good tastes of life.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Absolutely.
Oh, there you go. I'm anxious to try some of your seasonings. I was looking at your website a couple of days ago, and they look great. Do you have a favorite?
People ask me that all the time at markets and demos and everything, and I really do like all of them. And on a weekly basis, I probably use all of them. But if there's one that might be my favorite, is the Cowboy Shake, my Cowboy style steak and grill seasoning. It was kind of my flagship that started everything, and it just started the ball rolling. And I do grill a lot, and I love the smoky, earthy flavor. There's something about it that just hits home every time.
Great. Have to try that. So, speaking of markets and questions, and I understand you have some exciting news to share.
Yeah. So recently, I mentioned earlier, I've been in business almost 3 years now, but this past month, I just got into Safeway Grocers here in Colorado. I launched into 90 different retail locations, Safeway locations, and so far this is by far my biggest banner or get or retailer, if you want to call it that. And I'm really excited about it. It's really cool.
That is awesome. Congratulations.
Yeah,
And
thank you
that's
so much.
amazing. 3 years isn't, I mean, it might seem like a long time, but that's not very long in a business in
No,
growth. So that's an
it's
excellent win, if you will. Hmm.
yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And it is a hill. I think a lot of people get into it thinking, oh, I've got a product. Oh, I'll walk up here and I'll just sell it. And it's really not. I mean, there's so many steps in between, and um, a little bit of luck and networking, and late nights and doing things that you don't really want to do after you work a day job, and little steps that don't make sense, and you know you know, lots of days of, hey, I still haven't turned a profit. When is that going to happen? And, you're losing faith. Oh my gosh, it's great. You're losing faith. And so, it's moments like that that really do keep you going, and you see a little bit of light at the end of the tunnel.
Well, growing businesses do face a lot of challenges, and you listed a few of them. Is there anything that you found particularly challenging, or that really is like, oh man, if I could just crack this nut, or something that a hurdle you overcame and somebody helped you with, or?
You know, um, the biggest thing I think that I found that has helped, and I wouldn't call it a hurdle, but it's I think the biggest challenge for people to get rolling is your connections and knowing which channels actually like get you moving and move your business along, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it's I'm at a farmer's market, and you're talking to somebody and they mention, oh hey, I have a brother who has a store. You have to take the next step of, oh hey, could I get their contact and maybe talk to them? Or for my product I use a co-packer. I was literally making it in my kitchen under a cottage food law, and I went into a gift shop to try and sell it to a guy, and he's like, hey, legally I can't take this, but my son owns a co-packing business, and to this day, almost 3 years later, he's my co-packer. And
Ah,
so, it's I think the networking and the willingness to kind of take chances of like, hey, I have this idea, and not being afraid that somebody's going to shoot it down, or you have a bit of the imposter syndrome where I'm not good enough to be here. If you can get over that hump and make it a mutual thing of like, hey, I have this really good product, I'd like to talk to you about it. Maybe it's not for you, but do you know someone else? And really just building on that over and over, you wouldn't believe how far that gets you. And it is a little bit of especially if you're not an extrovert. Luckily, I am a bit of an extrovert, but
uh-huh.
if you're not, it's having to take that little bit of a leap. That might be the toughest, because the
Mm,
other things, it's numbers. you know, Sales and financials, it's numbers. That's not a bad thing. Um, but it's the networking and figuring out what your market is and who wants to buy it, and how do you convince them to give you a chance, and how do you get real estate in their store, and how do you convince somebody without them ever tasting, touching, smelling it, to buy a product and take a chance on it, spend their hard-earned money on it. That's the biggest piece.
yeah, how do you do that? I mean, I mean, for me personally, I'm a label freak. I read labels and I look at them in attractive
Right.
packaging, but I mean, that doesn't always mean you you're buying a good tasting product or something that's effective or does what you want it to do. So,
Right.
what's the magic there?
Well, you have to have a good product, and you got to believe in it. And I know that's a very broad kind of platitude, corporate type statement, but you really do. I use my stuff in my kitchen. I know it's good. I cook for people with it. They tell me it's good. You kind of have to believe in that. But then it's, how do I get someone to trust in this enough? And one of the biggest things is I do markets. So I have a farmer's market, and I'll do samples of it. And when people see how excited you are and how you actually use it, there's that next leap of, oh, okay, well, it's not that hard. Okay, I don't have to educate myself on this. Okay, I know what it's about. The same thing, I pay a third-party group to do demos in store for me, and
Oh,
they sample the product. Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. But it's funny, the if you want to call it a turnover conversion rate of people who see it and buy it versus people who taste it and buy it. I bet people who taste it and buy it, it's almost an 80% purchase rate. Whereas people who
wow.
see it and buy it, maybe 10, 20%, 1 out of 10 people, maybe.
Hmm.
People who taste it, it's about 8 out of 10 people.
Wow,
And
that's phenomenal.
yeah, and you just learn that. You learn what gets people excited, and if they see you excited about it, and right now the slow food, local grower, all that movement's huge. And when they see somebody out there who's willing to spend their time on a product that they made, and they believe in it enough to do that, they get behind that,
Hmm.
and it's awesome. It's really awesome to see.
That is great. So is there like a benefit, a hidden benefit in all of this for you, or is it as you expected?
The hidden benefit, and I bring this up a lot because people are like, what's been your favorite part? It's all the little things that I never expected would come out of this. It's all the unforeseen stuff. And a good example is like some of the people I've met. There's a historic hotel here in downtown Fort Collins that has a little gift shop, and the lady that runs it, she got a bottle of my seasoning as a stocking stuffer last Christmas. They decided to carry it in the hotel. I got invited to their grand opening, and I sit and I talked to a guy for 15 minutes. I found out it was the mayor of Fort Collins. It's little stuff like that. I met a lady at an event. She has a magazine publication here in Colorado called NoCo Magazine. I'm now a contributing food writer for them. I've written 4 articles for those guys, and they have a viewership of just over 1 million people, which is kind of cool. I've always wanted to get into food media somehow, whether it's written, television, blog, radio, any of that. And so, it's those type of things that are really, really cool. I've gotten to do some charity stuff. I've given to a charity back home in my hometown. Food service. There's a tasting room for a bourbon company in town, and they use some of my flavors on their elk burger. It's like a wild game burger that goes great with the whiskey. And it's those little things that I never thought would have popped up, and they're kind of fun surprises, right? They're fun little avenues you just never thought that you'd get into. Speaking of, actually today, a gentleman who has a Wagyu beef company, they're trying to start a beef jerky branch of that, like a Wagyu beef jerky. And he hit me up about my seasoning, thinking that they would be a great fit for the product. So it's really neat to see that. It's the non-monetary thing. I mean, I know you start a business to make money, but it's the non-monetary things that really keep you going and keep your interest peaked.
Mm-hmm. Brady, I think you're all about people and community, really, at the heart of things. That's what comes through to me. And I pulled a quote from the Northern Colorado Small Business Spotlight that the person that interviewed you talked about how during the process of interviewing you, that your love of food and your plan for the future and your excitement, which I can feel now talking to you, that actually gave the interviewer energy for their own business, which is phenomenal. That that you're able to pass that on in an entirely different business sector, and so I think that's a great gift you have, I'd say.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. How about any big unexpected things for you? Like what, you started doing this and something like, oh, I never in a million years thought this would happen, either positive or challenging or anything?
Going back, getting to write for a publication was really, really cool. I'm an engineer by trade, and so the muscles I normally flex are the math, science, technical realm, and so get to be a little more artistic and getting to flex those sales skills and the people skills and using that different side of the brain. This is as much as it gets. This is my art kind of that I get to do, and so it's fun to get to take the chances and try the new thing and really go out on a limb a little bit. That's been really fun and a little bit unexpected. It's been really cool to see how friends and family have rallied around me. You don't realize how many supporters you have until something like this happens. And I mean, even today, old friends that I haven't seen since high school are like, "Hey, I'd love to order some stuff offline." Makes great stocking stuffers, and it's really cool. People, how supportive people are when they see you working hard. That's been a great little benefit and a great unexpected. But as far as like the unexpected challenges, I would say time, like the length of time it takes to really see progress. I'm an impatient person by nature, and this has been an excellent exercise in patience.
Yeah.
When you're starting a business, and especially a consumer packaged product, you won't make money today, and probably not tomorrow, probably not months from now, years. I mean, I'm on year 3, and I'm just now going to finish in the black for the first year. And when I say in the black, it's about enough to take my wife out for a nice dinner. And, the time and just if you stay patient, and that's why when I was talking about earlier, focusing on the wins that are non-monetary. So the person you never expected would like your product, the store you'd been wanting to try and get into for the last year, the article you got to write, the person you got to meet, those are the things that keep you going until, hey, all of a sudden one day, oh, wow, it is a profitable business and, successful in that manner.
That's awesome, Brady. Thank you for that comment, really. And it is a long haul, and you know, people talk about overnight success businesses, and most overnight success businesses have been working their butts off for 10, 15 years before, you know.
Yeah, it
So
took him 15 years to become an overnight, yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, so I always ask people how what they do affects what's on people's plate, how it affects what's for lunch. I think your product is pretty obvious how it would impact, what's on people's plates because they would use your seasoning. Do you have any other angle on that?
Yeah, my wife and I talk about this all the time. When we were growing up, she grew up kind of in the middle of the country, and I grew up in North Texas, and we had a Mexican restaurant in town. We had a down home. We had a Chinese restaurant. And now the flood of variety we have is amazing. If you want to go for interior Mexican, great. Taqueria style Mexican, awesome. You have Thai, you've got Vietnamese, you've got Cantonese, Szechuan. The options out there are so crazy with how much our food landscape's changed. And my flavor profiles, I've got 5 now, and I do have plans to expand and change and move new ones. I just hope that maybe they're familiar enough, but also different enough where it gives that person a chance to say, you know what, I'm going to try something a little different today. Because maybe next time, if they liked it, they're willing to try the other type of food. The new restaurant in town that's doing a cuisine they've never tried, and then all of a sudden they're cooking it at home, and then all of a sudden the variety of vegetables and fruits and meat and dishes they're cooking at home has expanded, and maybe I get to play a little role in that. I might be taking that a little far, but it's great the variety we have now. I think both from our food quality, our food diversification, our culture, it's all really good things. I think that's been a great direction our country's been going in the last 10, 15 years. And, if I can be the first little step somebody does by putting a different flavor on a chicken breast they cook, and it opens them up to something else new and it gets that ball rolling, I think that's something really great.
So you help expand people's flavor profiles on their plates.
Yeah, exactly.
That's great. Well, tell us where to find you. How can people find you and your product? Besides, if they're in Colorado, they can go to Safeway, right?
Yeah, so here in Colorado, I'm in 130 retailers total.
Woo.
Safeway is my biggest. Lucky's Market is also a smaller kind of a specialty grocer. Think of like halfway between a Whole Foods and a Sprouts. If you're familiar with those. They're under the Kroger banner, which I'm also talking to Kroger and DPI is their distributor right now. They've asked for me to submit stuff, so fingers crossed I might be in the Kroger or King Soopers kind of realm here, not too far. You can find me online at www.jbradyseasonings.com. I ship anywhere in the country as well as a few international locations. And then I do have a smattering of specialty food and gift stores throughout the country and a multitude of states. I think there's a place in Massachusetts. I'm in downtown Bismarck, North Dakota, which you want to talk about unexpected. Never thought that happened.
Wow.
Some stores back in Texas. There's a couple stores in Oklahoma City that carry me, Arkansas. So there's kind of some random stores throughout, but really hoping to be able to expand. And I've always believed grow as big as you can where you're at, and then expand outward from there. Kind of get a following where you're at, but you can definitely find those. But I do quite a bit of online business. And so ships out in a couple days if you make an online order. Gets right to your door, and especially right now, I got to do the Christmas pitch. It makes a great stocking stuffer. So.
It does indeed. So we can ask for it in our favorite retail grocery store, or we can find you jbradyseasonings.com. And you can
Yeah,
also follow
absolutely.
Brady on Instagram, right? You're on Instagram.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, these days you have to have the Insta.
Well, thank you
So
so
yeah, feel
much.
free to. Yeah, yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add as we close?
No, just if you are interested in our product, definitely ask for it. Look for us online, like you said, and we'll keep expanding. And I really appreciate your time and just keep an eye out for us. Hopefully, we'll be near you soon.
Okay, will do. I'll be asking for you.
Great.
Thank you, Brady.